This video is about the process of making a contribution to an external ontology. In this example, I'm using the terms4fairskills ontology, which is an Obo Foundry ontology. The good news here is that they are already set up with a governance structure, and they've made a promise to the Obo community that they're willing to accept external contributions and discussions. I've already started by making an issue on their GitHub issue tracker saying what kind of term I want to add. In this example, I want to add a new kind of curation type into their curation hierarchy, and I want to call this data documentation to go along with other parts that are underneath the curation heading, like data cleaning, data munging, data integration, and so on. So what I'm going to do is, starting with the GitHub page on my web browser, I'm going to fork this repository. I'm going to clone it. I'm going to open it up in Protege. I'm going to make the addition that I want to, and then I'm going to make a pull request. While I'm doing this, I'm going to use GitHub Desktop to mediate a lot of these things. I'm not a huge fan of using Git in the command line. I think it's really got a huge learning curve. It's very steep. So I'm going to try and use the simplest workflow that way. So, okay, without further ado, here's the idea. Here's the term request. I know what the parent is, so I can look this up in Protege. I have to go back to the homepage of the repository. First step is I'm going to fork the repository. That means I'm going to make my own copy within my own username on GitHub. When it says choose an owner, my list is going to have lots of things because I'm part of lots of organizations, but for your list, it might just be your username. So click that. Only copy the main branch or the master branch, and then you can go ahead and create a fork. This usually takes a couple seconds. It should be working in real time while I'm making the video. Okay, so now you can see that we've got the same name of the repository, but we're inside my namespace, cthoyt up here. So the way that I clone repositories to make this go as fast as possible is just click the big green button and then open with GitHub Desktop. I've already installed GitHub Desktop. I'll add a link to this as well, so you can install GitHub Desktop yourself. So disregard the stuff in the back. It's going to come up with a clone repository, and it's going to give me probably a good set of defaults. So I know that all of my repositories go into my user cthoyt dev folder. This might be for you, documents, if you're on a Windows computer, or something else. Just make sure you remember where that is. And I'm going to hit clone without changing anything. The point of this is to contribute to the parent project. So Git is already, and GitHub is already sending me towards the right direction. So I'm just going to hit the blue continue button. Whenever you want to start working on somebody else's repository, you want to start by making a new branch. Staying on the main branch causes all sorts of issues. So I'm going to go to the branch menu. I'm going to make a new branch and add data documentation. I'm going to give it a name related to what I'm about to do. Usually you want to use kebab case here. And then I'm going to create a new branch. Okay, once I've made a new branch, I can already go into my file system and open up the repository and then open up the OWL file inside the repository. So GitHub Desktop also has a very quick way to do that, clicking Show in Finder. All right, within the Finder window, we're now going to see a lot of different files. Typically in the base, the root folder of OWL Obo ontologies, there's going to be lots of artifacts that have been built. These are not the ones you're supposed to edit. You're supposed to go inside the source folder, then inside the ontology folder, and then find the file that has -edit in it. So here, that's an OWL file. And now I can open up this file with Protege. Okay, Protege has a bug on Mac where whenever you open up a file with it, it doesn't actually open the file. So I have to open it a second time. All right, it's detected and loaded an ID range policy. This is really helpful. So this means that there's an ID range set. Actually, I should pick what my ID range is here. So let's just click additional editor. Okay. Now I'm inside the editor. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look for curation with the search menu. So by the way, I did that pretty fast. There's a search button on the top. I'm going to click that, search for curation, find the term I'm already looking for, and that will open it up in the class browser. So underneath curation, there's all sorts of other things. There's data cleaning, data curation, so forth. So I'm going to right click on curation and then add a subclass, and I'm going to call it data documentation. Now, when I do this, Protege kind of makes up a nonsense IRI for it. We're going to have to go back after the fact and figure out what's the right IRI for this and change it. But I'm just going to start by plowing forward and hitting OK. This will already give me an RDFS label, which is super helpful. Let's see what other kinds of metadata have been put into the other ones so I know what's part of the standard. So it looks like there's a definition in this one and term editor, so I can add my information for that. This one has alternative terms, so those are actually supposed to be synonyms. It has, okay, let's just keep going. It has tracker items, so we can incorporate a tracker item there. Okay, so let's go ahead and add a couple of those. So first, let's add the tracker item. And I'm going to go back to my web browser, and then I'm going to go back to that tab where I actually have the tracker item where I requested this. That's what they're asking for here, is just to keep track of where something was requested. And then I want to add the data type for any URI. This is not just a string, it's a link. Okay, next, I'm going to add a contributor. So that's me. I'm going to give myself credit for doing this. I have to figure out what my ORCID ID is. So here we go. I've copied my ORCID as a URI, and then I can add that into the IRI editor here. That's the correct way to incorporate contribution information. It might be the case that other ones have incorrectly incorporated links to ORCIDs, but that's a different story for a different day. So make sure that you copy paste it as an IRI, which means that it links to this as an object. Let's just double check. Yeah, so here it links as a string, but this is incorrect. Okay, and it's also using term editor, not contributor. So let's switch that predicate. Okay, next we want a definition. And let's come back to the place where I borrowed the definition. And so that's this text right here. I don't think they'll mind because I think that we've got a nice permissive reference there, but either way, I can make a direct reference to where that definition came from. So once I have the definition here, I can click on this little circle to add some extra, is it a circle? No, it's the at. Click on the at to add some annotations. And then I can put a reference to the place where it came from. So let's find the right term for that. What? Oh, okay. Maybe I'll use definition source. And then I can add a literal IRI. So let's come back here and let's copy paste. Well, let's go into this Zenodo page. Oh. I'm going to use the DOI for this record instead of linking directly to the document because this has a lot of extra information that's nice and quick to get to. So I'm going to add that. I'm also going to document this as being an IRI. All right, good. I think that's everything I need here. I just pressed Command S to save the ontology. Now I'm going to go back so this is all the edits I need to make to add this on here. I think it's nice. We don't need to do any axioms. I don't think it's the case that there's any interesting axioms in the rest of them. It's usually not the job of contributors. So now I'm going to go back to GitHub Desktop, and we can see here's the diff. We've added some extra stuff in here. Yeah. Oh, so the last thing is we have to fix the class. So yeah, the way to do that is not so easy. We have to figure out what is a number that hasn't been used yet, and then make sure that our IRI actually has the correct thing. Because here we see we've got this Perl oboe library oboe, T for FS, and then some, I think this is a UUID. We want this to be a 7-digit number, as most oboe ontologies do. So we have to figure out what number we can use that hasn't already been used. How do we do this? Well, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to in a quick way. So I'm going to do it in a sneaky way. I'm going to open up the OWL file in PyCharm. And then appears this is the only term inside the edit view. So maybe I've been wrong about editing it this way. Let's see if there's a different way to edit it. Components, config, imports. No, this doesn't really make sense. Where do all the terms come from if they're not inside the edit file? Maybe they're in the templates folder. Okay, so all of this was wrong. This was not a helpful video. I should start over, but I'm not going to start over. I'm going to keep going. It looks like there's a file for properties. And then this looks like the main file. Okay. So, unfortunately, most ontologies don't really document how they do stuff. Let's see if they have a nice contribution guide that I could have helped myself from shooting myself in the foot. So views on the ontology, blah, 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 blah. Nope, there's nothing on the homepage about contributions. Maybe there's a contributions file. Okay, has a request a new term. That's not useful. How to add a term. Okay, this does have contribution guidelines. However, they're not actually correct. Great. So this is the life of making contributions to ontologies. Let's go back and try and do it the right way. So instead of doing all this protege stuff, the actual way to do this is to edit one of these template files. So let's open up the template file and take a look. So let's see, we've got an ID, a label, a parent. We've got some other sort of cryptic IAO terms, which I don't know what they are off the top of my head. Yeah, okay. It says it on the second line, the definition source, the term editor. So let's, and we're not sorted. Okay, that's not great either. Let's go into full IDE mode. Okay, that didn't work. Let's open it up in a spreadsheet editor so I can sort it by IDs and then figure out what's the biggest ID. It looks like it doesn't have any interest in sorting by numbers. Why does 556 come after? There are typos in several of these fields. Interesting. Okay, so first thing we're gonna fix those typos because this is now a drive-by curation. Okay, let's sort again. So the next number is 661. Okay. So to make this faster, I'm going to come back here. I'm going to look for one of the ones that exist already. I'm going to copy that record. Data catalog. Oh, I think there's some British spelling in here. Data categorization. Okay, so I'm going to come all the way to the bottom of the document. And now I'm going to make my contribution here. So we're jumping back, remembering, okay, I want 661. 661. And I want data doc imitation. I don't need any things here. I need my ORCID again. So I just deleted those synonyms. I'm going to put my ORCID here. going to put today, 2025, August 28. It's 12:40. I don't think the rest of the parts matter. And let's see. Term editor. Yes, term editor. We want that. Where did mine go? Okay, there's some errors in this text file. Let's see. Row 46, maybe we can fix them quickly. Good. Got rid of those goofy quotes that are incorrectly encoded. Let's see if we can freeze the first two rows. Okay, no, this is in a real text editor. Okay, definition is column 4. So I'm going to copy my definition again. And the definition source, I'm going to copy into column number 5. Let's see, what else can I add? We've got term editor, definition source, alternate definition created by creation date comment, tracker item all the way at the end. Okay, somehow my stuff ended up on the wrong row. Nope. Okay. All right, let's make sure this saves. And now I'm going to come back to my GitHub desktop and I'm going to get to see a beautiful, beautiful diff. Now, it's not really my job to fix everything all in one pull request. Typically, I'll end up going and making multiple pull requests for fixes like this. So let's only add my term. So notice that it's going to make a change to the last line because they didn't leave a trailing new line. So this is not very good practice, but now I've left a trailing new line for the next person. So I can make my pull request by only highlighting the lines I want to change. And now I can say added new term for data documentation. And I can also write closes number and then autocomplete in there. And then I can make my commit. Then I can publish my branch. And now I can come back to GitHub. And inside the repository, it will give me, so now I'm back into the upstream one, it'll give me a nice note that says, hey, do you want to make a pull request? And it's going to correspond to the branch that I made. So now I'm going to compare and pull. I'm going to make one more check. This all looks about right. I probably want to go back and try and build the ontology myself just to make sure that this looks right at the end. I'm going to do that after I make the pull request. I'm already going to just go for it. This is the point where the build part might not work for everybody, so you want to have the people who are in charge of the ontology helping you with that. So create pull request. All right, so that's it for making a pull request. Now we have to wait for the people who are in charge of the ontology to give some feedback. Typically they'll say yes. If not, they might make some requests for changes. Okay, but I found a couple big problems that I'm going to fix while I'm here, because if I don't fix them, no one else ever will. So why don't we come back in here? Let's delete all these changes. This is now the end of the original video, but I'm already here and I'm already recording, so I'm going to show you what's going on. So I'm going to make a new branch, fix ID typos. Remember back when I found all of those ones where there's a typo where it had TF4S? We're going to fix that now, TF4S. How many times does this happen? Well, a couple. So we want it to be T4FS. We're going to fix all 7 of those. We're also going to fix that trailing new line here because, well, maybe not. Trying to keep diffs as small as possible is good. So let's not change that last line at all. Okay, so in this one, we're going to say fix 7 typos in identifiers. All right. Quickly make that pull request. Now we're going to come back here. Good. Let's double check. So we've got this data scientist, metadata creation, ontologist role, procurement officer role, software engineer role, system administrator role, terminology manager role. Yeah, this is super helpful to have the identifiers following the right standard, because a lot of people like me rely on those identifiers to the IRIs to have the right prefix to be able to parse them out. So good. All right, I'm going to stop there. I'm not going to fix the thing with the quotes because, well, that's another problem for a different time. Hope this was helpful in learning a little bit about how to make a contribution. Probably is insightful to know that making contributions is never as straightforward as you're hoping. And I purposely did not prepare what I was doing ahead of time in this, because if I prepared, it would have looked a little bit too easy. I hope that the fact that contributions are never so easy doesn't discourage you. Typically, once you know how to make a contribution on a repository, the second time is a lot easier. And once you make one contribution, people are pretty inclined to help make other ones. So I hope you learned something. Thanks to the whole group for making the Terms for Fair Skills ontology. I think this is a very useful resource, very central towards a lot of different disciplines with respect to education, fair data, research data management. We're using this pretty heavily. So yeah, thanks to Allison and Pete and the team. Yeah, looking forward to doing a little bit of curation together. Bye-bye.